Satoshi created a game that's rigged in favor of the individual.
Is he a real person?
Satoshi is a real person.
Do you know who he is?
Gone but not forgotten.
Do you know who that person is?
We're all Satoshi. We're all Satoshi now, Dave.
Okay.
Right? The most important thing to know is that, like Prometheus gave us fire to warm you up, Satoshi gave us a game we can all win, right? And Bitcoin is that game. It's, there are certain things where, like, you don't want to be on a network where they can censor what you say and they can freeze your account. Bitcoin is a monetary network where it won't censor where you send your money. It won't freeze your account. And it's engineered in such a way that on the margin, you're winning the game over time. So think of it like, wouldn't it be great if you had a basketball team, you had LeBron James, you had Michael Jordan, and you had the digital version of them, and they played forever, and you could get on the court and play with them. And they're scoring 100 points and you're scoring 2 points, but you're all getting rich together and you're all winning together. That's what Bitcoin is like. It's like everybody gets to play. Everywhere in the world I go, there's like a fan club. There's hundreds of millions of people that are on Team Bitcoin. You should join Team Bitcoin. The 100 million fans would be rooting for you. And the great thing about it is you don't just win the game. You get wealthy while you're winning the game.
So that description is something, and we talked about a little bit outside. I've always said, I've heard Bitcoin fans also say they buy it because they think it's good for humanity. And it's not even about making money necessarily. It's about good for society. I've been very clear. I'm on the make money side of things. And by the way, I believe eventually I got to a point, thought Bitcoin got too big to fail, too many people with money involved in it. And that's why it's interesting to me. So when you're this heavy, and I think you said you just about outside of BlackRock own the most Bitcoin in the world.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know if you can put percentage on, as a good investment financially versus trying to save mankind, if that makes any sense? How do you break it? Did you do it? This is what I think the best way to put my money is, or like I said, it's a moral decision.
I think it's both. I think we got to play the game of life, and half the game of life is economics. And so you have to play the economic game, whether you like it or not. So you can put your money in a Lebanese bank and use Lebanese currency. The government inflates the currency, the bank freezes your assets, and you fail at the game of life. You can put your money in any asset in Africa, or you can put your money into Bitcoin. So the real appeal of Bitcoin is everybody in the world, I mean, they don't want to put their money in a bank in the middle of Africa in an African currency you've never heard of, right? But Bitcoin gives you control of your money, right? And is that egalitarian? Yeah. Is that humanitarian? Sure, it is. Is it economically smart? Yeah, right? So they're connected, right? You have to have economic empowerment if you're going to achieve whatever you want in life. And to be economically empowered, you have to be on a network that won't freeze you or censor you. And you got to have an asset that nobody else can debase. No corporation can screw up. No country can screw up, and that's what Bitcoin represents.
So when we were out talking, and Michael was red pilling me before we got on the air, which is always a problem you have when you meet somebody, and we were just talking for 25 minutes. And you gave an analogy that I'd never really heard or thought of, which I think is worth re-saying. And you were talking about cyber New York, essentially, or cyber buying property as though, if you could buy property in New York in the 1600s and then you sell it. And what I thought was interesting is not everyone can buy cyber New York, you get the United States, but you were talking in terms of Bitcoin. If you want to re-explain that analogy, I thought that made a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's certain places where the land values go through the roof. If, like the land we're standing on right now in Miami, it used to go for $10,000 an acre, and now it goes for $10 million, $20 million an acre. It's up by a factor of 1,000 in less than 100 years. Same in the Hamptons, same in Manhattan. I grew up in Fairborn, Ohio. The land in Fairborn, Ohio did not go up by a factor of 1,000. Right. The land in the middle of the swamps or the land in the Rocky Mountains doesn't go up. So if I gave you the chance to buy up all of Palm Beach or the Hamptons or Manhattan, any time in the past 100 years, it would have been a good deal. In fact, in 1650, you could have bought Manhattan. 1700, you could buy land in Manhattan every decade for the past 300 years at a price higher than the person that sold it to you bought it for, and it still would be a good investment. The only thing that slightly slows you down is the property tax, but assume there's no property tax, you would buy it and hold it forever. Now, if you're an African or South American or Russian or Chinese, you can't buy land in the United States easily. You don't want to own the land in Africa any more than you want to own the land, in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. It's not going to appreciate. So Bitcoin represents cyber Manhattan. It's 21 million blocks. Everybody with money in the world is going to want to put some of their money there, right? How much of their money? Well, if you lived in Lebanon or Iraq or Syria right now, the money you have in Bitcoin you still have, and the money you have in the local bank you don't have anymore, right? If you need to leave a country or flee for your life, and that happens a lot, the money you have in Bitcoin you get to keep. The money you have in land or buildings or local currencies or a local bank, you lose. So Bitcoin really represents that strongest, greatest city in cyberspace, and it's going to be the center of the digital economy. Like, the really nice thing about it is when you're buying a block or 10 blocks of Manhattan in the year like 1900, you don't know what people are going to do with it, but you kind of figure that all the smart people will move to New York and they'll want that land to build a building on it. And you're going to get wealthy because you're holding it. The same is true with Bitcoin. If you're living in Africa or China or Russia or Argentina and you buy Bitcoin, you don't really know what you're going to do with it. But guess what? MicroStrategy just bought $2 billion of it this week. I know what I'm going to do with it. And I bought it at 100,000. So if you bought Bitcoin at 5,000,
so you're the Michael Jordan. You're the Michael Jordan of the analogy, in which if you're buying Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, you're just buying forever. You're never going to stop buying.
Yeah, I'm going to keep buying. I joke. It's like you said, well, is 100,000 too much? And I said, look, Dave, I'll be buying it at $1 million a coin, and I'll probably be buying it at the rate of $1 billion a day at $1 million a coin, because that's what I do. Just like, you're like, crap, Manhattan real estate's really expensive in 1930. It's a lot more expensive than 1830. I'm like, well, 100 years later, we'll still be buying it and we'll be paying a lot more. The only issue is, can you hold it for that time period? Because people are going to want to buy it.
During the course of this, since you really got involved 2020 COVID, we talked about it a little bit early. You're a smart guy, MIT guy. Have you had any doubts at any point? Like, oh, I picked the wrong horse, or you just steadfast? Or were you willing to be like, what, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I go bust?
In March of 2020, we all get punched in the face. And for 6 months, you're like, well, do I move to Miami? Do I get in the stock market? Do I buy Bitcoin? What do I do? So for about 6 months, I spent trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And we discovered Bitcoin. And I thought, well, it's not without risk, but everything else is worse. Everything else is a fast death or a slow death. So I'm going to do something new. Over the next 4 years, the risk got taken off. The administration embraced it as a commodity, and that was one risk factor taken off. And then we got the ETFs, that was the second risk factor. And then you got the Trump administration embracing it and the red sweep, that's the third risk factor. And then MicroStrategy, we bought 250 million. We bought 250 million at like 11,800 coin, and then it crashed 20%, Dave.
Yeah.
And we lost $40 million in the next week and a half. And that was.
What are you doing when that happens? Are you like?
I'm figuring out how to buy the next 250 million, because I'm in. You're in. Once you're committed, you're in. And I'm like I'm going to ride it to zero, or we're going to win. But I've decided I want to win. And I knew that if I didn't play the game, I was certainly going to lose. So, that was the difficult time. But then Bitcoin rallied, went back to the all-time high. And from August of 2020 to about a month ago, we raised $10 billion because everybody got behind us and we had a strategy and we committed to it. And then there was the red sweep and big November, and we raised $15 billion in 4.5 weeks.
And you just take that and you buy more Bitcoin. So
now we put 25 billion into the network. But it's like, decide what you're going to do with your life, focus, commit. And you're going to get punched. You're going to get beat in the face a little bit. You'll take a few
So all right, let's here's the $1 million question. Let's put on, and you're my financial advisor hat.
Yeah.
Let's say my net worth 100 million. What percentage should my net worth should I have? And I own 14. It's a small portion of what I have. I've been beaten, lost, chasing. If you're my financial advisor, I say I don't need this money for 10 years.
Yeah, I would say you take your money and you divide it between scarce, desirable real estate you want to live in that you like this place.
Yep.
And then I say you take some and you put it in like a big tech stock portfolio, maybe Magnificent Seven or things you like. And you take another portion, maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 20%, maybe it's 30%, somewhere in that range, and you buy digital property, you buy Bitcoin with it. So 2% probably, that's an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Right, 2% is an insurance policy. You're not going to get rich buying flood insurance for your house. 10% you're a player, 20, 30%, you probably make a lot of money. And if you're a maximalist, you go to 50% or 75%. But at that point, you're really focused upon that.
And then the last thing before I let you go.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask in this world, and I asked it already, a lot of people are Bitcoin. I asked, are you only Bitcoin? Do you other crypto? What are your thoughts on the crypto space? We know how you feel about Bitcoin, but all the other coins and everything going on, like what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so my view is Bitcoin is like a protocol, it's an asset without an issuer. When I'm promoting Bitcoin, it's like I'm saying electricity, fire, English, math, and Bitcoin, Dave. Like teach your kids those things. And then you say, what do I think about other investments? I'm like, well, that building might be good to buy. That Picasso might be at a good price. Maybe you should buy some NVIDIA. Maybe that's a good price. Those are 100,000 investments. You have to be the expert. If you're an expert and you can play that game, then you should. I have nothing negative to say about it. But what I'm saying is if you just want to take some amount of your money, hold it for 100 years and not worry about it, you want the world's global dominant economic protocol, the capital protocol, and that's Bitcoin.